do is just keep looking at that thing and make sure that the screen is still playing. Sometimes it'll shut off.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Tonight we're gonna go over prefixes and suffixes. I think we kind of went over it last week, but I'm gonna go over it again just to kind of do it, just because it's kind of important. So, we'll go over it again real quick. All right.
Let's see how Total Eclipse handles prefixes and suffixes. Your Steno dictionary probably includes common word,
Down below.
suffixes to hook onto a previous word.
You're gonna teach this class soon.
Eclipse does a great job of adjusting spelling. Dictionary probably includes common prefix. Eclipse handles prefixes and suffixes. Your Steno dictionary probably includes common prefixes to hook onto a following word and suffixes to hook onto a previous word. Eclipse does a great job of adjusting spellings as it adds prefixes and suffixes, but please remember, it will only adjust the spellings if braces surround both the delete space symbol and the prefix or suffix text. Eclipse will not automatically adjust spellings if only the delete space symbol is within braces. Eclipse comes with a prefixes and suffixes kit with a dictionary that includes several hundred entries. All you have to do is decide whether you want to use the steno that is given as an example, or press the enter key to get inside and change the steno to something that you would write. The documentation shows how these prefixes and suffixes, added to common root words, could help translate uncommon words beautifully. Much more could be said about prefixes and suffixes, but this is the subject of a separate in-depth ePower video tutorial, which shows you step by step how to take advantage of the prefixes and suffixes kit.
Okay. Did most of that make sense? Seriously?
I think we did it last time.
Okay.
I remember that.
And I think we did too, but it's just kind of an important thing, because if you leave out the brackets, super important, it's not gonna work. It is not gonna work. Okay. So I'm gonna go through there and kind of show you guys.
Let's see how
what I mean.
Total Eclipse handles prefixes and suffixes. Your Steno dictionary probably includes.
Okay, you see how they have the brackets right here? That's what they want you to do. So if you leave the brackets out, you forget the caret, then it's not going to know what to do. It's only going to know that, you leave the caret out, it doesn't know what to do with it. The caret means put it together. So when you have the caret on the right side, it means that it's a prefix, and when you have the caret on the left side of your ending, then that means that it's a suffix. And it already knows. You don't have to put in there any of the other stuff. It already knows. Like if you have the suffix s to make it plural, it already knows whether it needs to put es, ies, any of that stuff. So Total Eclipse already knows what to do. You just have to define it correctly. Does that make sense? Okay.
Common prefixes to hook onto a following word, and suffixes to hook onto a previous word. Eclipse does a great job of adjusting spellings as it adds prefixes and suffixes, but please remember, it will only adjust the spellings if braces surround both the delete space symbol and the prefix or suffix text. Eclipse will not automatically adjust spellings if only the delete space symbol is within braces.
That's exactly what I was talking about. You see how they did it there? That's how not to do it. Do not do it that way. Okay? Because then it's gonna add a space, then ed is what it's telling it. Okay? So it's almost treating it as a different word, like ed is a different word. So you have to be careful with the way that you define it. Okay?
Eclipse comes with a prefixes and suffixes kit with a dictionary that includes several hundred entries. All you have to do is decide whether you want to use the steno that is given as an example, or press the Enter key to get inside and change the steno to something that you know you would write. The documentation shows how the...
Do you guys understand what they just said there? So if you write ing, you know, you don't really have to go in there and change it. You just have to go in there and add it. Just add it to your dictionary because it's going to know. You know, unless you use the final G for something totally different other than ing, then it's gonna know what to do.
These prefixes and suffixes added to common root words could help translate uncommon words beautifully. Much more could be said about prefixes and suffixes.
Okay, and there is, I got the tapes to a lot of these tutorials, and I think what we're going to do is I think we're going to go through the whole thing, and then I'm going to go through individually. They're little CDs, and I think we're going to go through those individually. So if you guys have questions about something, really some of the most important stuff is the globaling, the dictionary, super important. Prefix and suffix is pretty important, and like numbers. Numbers is real important. How to know when to do writing it out versus the number. Make sense? All right. Here they're kind of showing you the differences where they stroked out the words, and you know, like on certain words that you stroke, like preponderance. PRE is going to be, it could be a prefix, so you want to define it as a prefix. You could go through, I think the way they do it in the lesson, it's a 4-stroke. It's pre, pon, der, rants. So they stroked it as PRE, which it all depends, because like PRE could be the prefix, but yet you stroke preponderance, PR long E. If you do it that way, don't define it as a prefix. So if you don't use it that way, don't define it that way. Does that make sense? Okay. And then you know, if you use some of the other things, like here they have it's historiographer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, historiographer. That's the way that they stroke history. So what you would do is go through and put.
I just saw lightning.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm watching the weather right now.
Well, actually, I think what they did was they may have misstroked it, and it's. Okay. So it's this. I guess it's stroked out correctly. That's the way they stroke history, HIFT. So you could do, you know, these 2 strokes, but this, depending on if you know, they define it as RY. So, you know, if that's the way that you stroke, you know, the suffix RY, then you want to go through and do that. I stroke history in 1 stroke. Mine is HIRT. That's my history. But we hear it all the time in my court because they go back on history of the parents. So we hear it all the time. I used to 3-stroke that out. History. And then it was his tree. So it was his try. Well, then that kind of conflict, and it's like, you know what? I need to figure out a way. We hear it every day. So I'm not going to sit there and you know, it's all about working smarter, not harder. I know you guys have heard me say that. So, you know, I figured out a brief. That's what works for me. But, you know, if, you know, you want to go through and define the different words, that's fine. You know, here they were trying to stroke out agriographer, whatever. Well, you know, you may use grapher some other time. Historiographer, choreographer, you know, whatever. So, you know, you want to use that as it's going to be a root word. So it's always going to be after something. Does that make sense? It's always going to be used as a root word after like a prefix. Usually not after a suffix. You know, it's not usually going to have a suffix. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what they're explaining right there. If you want to go through and define the different words in one total word, then you can. Or you can define it as just the whole word. But you're going to find how many times, you know, you have grapher. Like I was saying, choreographer, histographer, whatever. So, you know, it's always best to kind of put it in there just in case, because it's always going to know, you know, if you do history and then grapher, which, you know, graph, I mean, even if you misstroke it, I mean, I guess you could misstroke graph, but I don't know where you would ever use history graph, but it'll know to put it together. Make sense? I think I already lost you. Reassumptions? Oh, reassumptions. Reassumptions? Okay. They're just kind of telling you the same thing there. Using the caret to delete the space, put the word together. Be very careful where you put that caret, because that's where it's going to know where to put the word. Prefix, suffix. If you put it in the wrong place, you know what's going to happen. Very bad things. All right. Also, it's going to tell you right here, Eclipse knows whether it's an ER or OR word. So you don't even have to do that. You know, on certain words, it's going to know. So even if you stroke it wrong and put the ER, it's going to know to change it to OR. It's pretty neat. You know, the artificial intelligence is very good on this software. So it's, you know, it's going to know. And I'm not saying it does it every time, but I've seen way more times than not, it knows what to do on leaving the, you know, even if it's IER, any of that stuff. So it knows what to do, you know, with the root word that ends in Y to change it to IER or whatever. So if you define it correctly, which would be this way as a suffix, okay? Also, there's great ways of fixing your stacking problems. You know, and this is huge, because I don't care which reporter you know, I don't know of one that doesn't stack a little bit. And it's only because the machine, it's going to sound kind of crazy, but the machine can't keep up with the human. We're faster than the machine. So sometimes, I mean, you're just going so fast that you're just, you know, stroking stuff before, you know, you're already going down on something when your hand's coming up on something else, and it just kind of drags it in a little bit and stacks it. And that's what happens, is the machine is just too sensitive or whatever. But there's ways of fixing it. And Eclipse knows, you know, when you define it certain ways, that it knows. This is one of my biggest problems right here. There's always ing with the. I do it a ton.
Is that how you have it defined?
Yes. Yes. But I also do it the No, it's never the ing. It's never the ing. It's always ing with the, because if not, it's going to be on the other word. So you're not going to have to worry about it.
Jumping the fence. Like jumping the fence.
Jumping the fence, yeah. So it's going to know to put the ing back up there with jumping, and then have the d right there. Okay? It also knows it on, if you guys stack your yes, yes sir, yes ma'am, no sir, with your question bank. Y'all do that? Great. If you know how to read it, it's fantastic, because it saves you a stroke. You're stroking the question bank with OS for no sir. So it's question bank OS for no sir. Well, it already knows. Put it up there. No sir. Period. Question. Next cap. Does that make sense? Flip. All right. I'm not quite sure what they were doing there. I guess he strikes United States, US twice. I guess. I don't do it that way, but whatever. So I guess that's what he was doing there. And this is just some a little exercise right here of how they go through and how you would define it. Okay, so that's all they're showing you right there is remind. You could go through and global the two strokes of remind to do it as one, but if you always do RE that way, then you want to stroke it. You want to define it as a prefix, not as one word. Not as, you're not defining the word. Am I explaining that correctly? Does that sound right? Because unless you stroke remind or long E mind, then that's the only time that you would want to global it and put it out throughout the whole thing, because I don't know of anybody that does a prefix as R long E. Does anyone do that? No? Then you wouldn't want to do that. If you use it RE all the time, remind, well, and that's really what it is. It's a prefix, because it's telling you to mind again, remind. Remind. So, that's what it's telling you. So it's a prefix to the word. It's not just a word. Am I explaining that correctly? Y'all get that? Okay. And that's what they did right here. See, he strokes out R long E. To me, kind of ridiculous, but if that's the way you learned it, then that's the way you do it. So if that's the way you always do your prefix for re, then you want to define it as the bracket RE caret bracket. Okay? I don't stroke it that way. This is going to be something totally different. I'm trying to think of a way that I would even stroke that R long E. I don't even know. But I wouldn't do it. So if I did stroke it this way for a word, I know that I'm not always going to use that way. So I'm going to global the whole word and define it as the word, and not use it as a prefix, because it's not a prefix to me. I don't use it as a prefix. Okay? Here is where they're showing you where I was telling you guys about pre, pond, yance. If you're going to stroke it out that way, great. They're telling you right here to stroke pre, define it as a prefix, pond, because it could be used as a small bed of water. Is, could be used as a suffix, and then yance could also be used as a suffix too. If you stroke out all of your yances, does that make sense? Continuance. I don't know anybody that really does, but if you do, that's just kind of a example. Right here, they're showing you how you would define that. Does anyone know how you do that?
Which judging from
Mm-hmm. So it'd be your bracket,
with the
caret,
ing,
G,
a G.
caret, no space, from. So the end of the bracket already knows, put the space next word. So if you put a space and then put from, then it's going to have two spaces. So that's why I say you have to be real careful when you define this stuff, because it's going to go through and do that. It's going to do what you tell it to do. That make sense? I must say that a lot. Done that. One of the girls was like, I was explaining something the other night, and she goes, "Yes, it makes sense." Before I even said, "Did you go outside, think about what you just said?"
Go to the principal.
Yeah. All right. See what they say here.
Occasionally, you'll need to add a prefix or suffix while editing. You can click on a toolbar icon, or open the Edit menu to insert a prefix or suffix, or press Hyperkey W. At this dialog, G is a shortcut. And this time I'll use the shortcut D. And of course, these suffixes were added with the proper spelling adjustments.
And you see how it's doing it? You see how it knew to add the R, the extra R on occur for the RED? I'm telling you guys, in Hyperkeys, this is invaluable. Invaluable. I mean, it's really great. I mean, you just get to where it's second nature with that W. And all it is W, it comes up, I already know. ED is D, ING is G, ES or IES is S. I mean, and there's actually quite a few of them. I'll go through there and I'll show you guys in just a second.
Much more could be said about prefixes and suffixes, but this is the subject of a separate in-depth ePower video tutorial, which shows you step by step how to take advantage of the prefixes and suffixes kit.
There's really a lot of them, LY, whatever. So you're right here, you're already in Hyperkeys. You can see by the bigger cursor. W, they already come up. So those are the different ones. A, and they try to put the letter closest to what you're going to use it as. So S is ES, D is ED, G is ING, A is usually like ABLY, IBLY. So you understand why they did it there. B is BLE, C doesn't make any sense to me, but it's IVE. EST, ERS, and there's a lot of them. All of the isms, EN, Asian, NES.
So from there, you just push the letter and you push OK.
That's it. So say, right here, I want ING, G.
So you push
It
W
already
key.
kind of knows to change it, because it knows that it's not theing, so it's going to put it to the closest thing that it thinks that it is, unless it is theing, which it's not going to be. So push Z, brings it back. So even if you're just kind of messing around with it and it's like, oh, I need to go to, that was, let me try R. Oh, you know what? That wasn't right. Z puts it back. So even if you're just kind of messing around with it, you just kind of want to see what it would do. No. it doesn't really do anything because it knows that it can be childed. Okay, so I've tried to put the D. It doesn't know. So if it doesn't recognize the word as a word, then it's not going to put it on there. You know, does that make sense? Let's see if it'll. I don't know why it does. I don't know why it changes it from child. And I was pushing R. Let me see if there's a. No, there's not. But like, you know, here, you know, you want to do conferencing, it already knows. Take the E off, put the ing. See that? So it's so amazingly useful when you use it to its potential. You know, so really mess around with this stuff, guys, because it's only going to help you the more you mess with it. Okay? Does that make sense? Of course it makes sense. The more you use it, the better you're going to get at it, and it's just going to kind of come as second nature. So
Let's see some of the ways that AutoMagic helps you prevent spelling errors as you work. Word reverse errors as you work. Word reversals are just one of the small problems that AutoMagic understands. This question should have been, is she still working there? Problems that AutoMagic understands. This question should have been, is she still working there? Pressing 5 is a fast way to reverse these words. This should have been working, but I need a different suffix. Pressing 2 here would be a fast way